It's very good to see you all for our April event. We've got an exciting lineup today. For those that don't know, I'm Jessica. I'm one of the BI user group hosts alongside Kaylin and Sven. You'll be hearing from both of them a bit later. So for our agenda today, we'll start off with an introduction. That's what's happening right now. As you all know, the BI world changes so often. So we'll have JP taking us through the latest Power BI news, followed by Kaylin with some Fabric news. Then for our main event of the evening, we're going back to the basics with a brand new series. Sven will be taking us through the foundational concepts of Power BI and Fabric. Think the service, semantic models, Power Query, report design principles, and how all of these pieces fit together. It's perfect for those beginners new to the Power BI world trying to navigate all these wild concepts, but also for us veterans of the field, it's always important to keep that foundational skill set sharp. So before we jump into the excitement, just some formalities. If you're feeling up for it, please switch on your camera and give us your brightest smile. Just make sure it's a silent smile by keeping your audio muted, please. And if any questions pop up during the presentation, please raise your hand using the raise your hand option, or pop it in the chat. I'm sure we'll get to it as soon as possible. Now, I know most of us aren't fans of surveys, but this one is important, I promise. We use our feedback survey to shape the future of this user group. The topics and content you want to see, potential workshops, and even to look for any volunteer presenters, a little nudge, nudge, wink, wink, if anyone is interested. We really, really want to hear your opinions and suggestions to help us improve in the future. With that, we've also received quite a bit of feedback before requesting topics that we've actually already covered. So you can use the second QR code on the slide to navigate to our GitHub repository that has all of the content from previous sessions. We also have a YouTube channel where we post these recordings. So in case you miss any of our sessions, just after our presentations, I'll post all of those links in the chat. Okay. Then last but not least, before I hand over to our presenters, this is our event calendar for the year. We're generally on the last Thursday of the month, except for today, and in September again, due to all these public holidays. But our next event will be on 28th May. It's hybrid. So for anyone keen to join, it's either online or at our Intellect Joburg offices. Our topic is still to be confirmed. So again, a little nudge. If you want to present and have a topic in mind, please fill in that feedback survey. Okay, well, I have talked enough for now. So let me hand over to our first speaker today. JP, are you good to go?
Good to go. Thanks, Grace. Just safe. I'm going to share my screen. Just if you can see the screen.
We can. Thank you.
Okay, cool. Thank you. I will be covering the news today. It's going to be a summary of the news for February and for March. So not all topics will be covered, but the majority of items will be covered. There will be 2 QR codes that you will be able to scan at the end of the deck. This will be shared with you guys afterwards, that you can view the official links to view the official news with the updates. So I'm a consultant at Sadar Analytics, working together with Sven, and there's my contact information. And then the first part that we will cover today is some items that are deprecated. So on the Power BI scorecards, the hierarchy feature will be deprecated. So that's like more than a week ago, that's fully deprecated. And then that heat map view that was tied to it will also be discontinued, but the scorecards will work as usual, so no changes there. And then the legacy import option, as per the screenshot on the top right hand side, for the Excel and CSV experience. So that applies to the users who created it on the old experience, importing Excel or CSV in the service. It doesn't impact the users who created models in the Power BI desktop, and reports created from legacy experience must be recreated in order to continue for the report to be updated. And in the old file picker experience, it's just basically a new experience where you will be able to select your file. That's the new default experience. So nothing to do from your end. That's just going to be the default experience going forward. And then there's a couple of announcements. So the input slicer update. The text slicer has been renamed the input slicer. You can choose from a variety of fields that's on the screen, contains, doesn't contain, etc. So there's multiple options that you can actually use for. The big one on the input slicer, you can configure that for user input on translytical task flows. So that could be a beneficial item for you. And then it also supports conditional formatting now. If you go on the formatting pane, so there are different options on the formatting pane on there. And then on the paste selections, that's usually when you have multiple items that you want to input in a slicer. That is available now, and that's also available on the button and the list slicers. And like it says, pasting selections into slices enhances your filter process. So it's just upgrading or updating your user experience by pasting multiple values. And then the one feature that I like a lot is this leader lines on your legends that's pointing directly to the line. That's a nice update that was added. And then on the card visual, the default callouts that you would have had previously was 5 on the top, and now it's on default, it's 10. You can change it in the settings. That's one update. And then another update, which is quite nice, is on the visuals that was usually included in the visual section here. You would have seen some of the visuals that's in preview were included there, but now they distinctly said the visuals will have the word preview in it, and it's going to be at the bottom. So that's also nice. And if you do not like it, you can just restore it to default values there, and it's going to rearrange your look and feel. And then there were some Copilot announcements. So if you had a prompt on Copilot, the prompt was limited to 500 characters. That was updated to 10,000 characters. So that allows you to have a bigger prompt input. So you can obviously include more details in your prompt. And then that includes it for the normal standalone experience, your report pane, apps, mobile, or embedded. And then for the same reason on report, apps, mobile, embedded, this, the look and feel has been unified across them all. So it looks and feels the same, and the functionality will remain the same. So that's quite nice that you don't have to experience difficult or different user interfaces on different sites. And then if you want to submit feedback on Copilot, you have an additional field where you can include your diagnostic data. You can preview the diagnostic data before you upload or include it with your submission to Microsoft, just to ensure that no sensitive data is being shared. And then on the AI narrative, you can enable auto refresh now on there. So that's making your report experience a bit smoother and more efficient. And then 2 items are generally available now. That's translytical task flows, and your direct lake in one lake is now generally available. And then one feature that I like that was added is there's improved error dialogues in Power BI desktop. So the normal monotone feedback that I previously had on a visual on an error that you have to figure out what's going on. There's a bit more info there that should help you assist on fault finding. And then on the Azure Maps visuals, from February, they would have rendered faster on the reports, especially with the pie charts on there. So better user experience again. And then 2 new DAX functions were included, table auth and name auth, and that works inside UDFs. I haven't tried it yet, but with the UDFs, that would be a game changer to include those 2. And then a new function, info.user-defined functions, has also been introduced, and that's going to return you information about all the UDFs that is used in your semantic model. So that's also quite a nice addition. And then with your modern visual defaults, it's going to start with a modern look. It's going to feature your subtitles, uniform padding, style presets. There's going to be a default gray background with that size on the screen there. And then the charts will have smooth lines. Slices will revert to drop-down mode. So that is by default. So that is nice. And then possibly the biggest one for me that I like the most is the terminal view and the web modeling that's in preview. So that allows you to edit and change your model without switching to desktop or downloading your model files. I think that's going to be a game changer and help you assist on changing your workflow. And that's the updates. There's just some official links. That's a February and a March link. There's the link to the YouTube that will be shared afterwards as well, and just a link to download Power BI, the latest version. And that's it. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much, JP. Sure, I work in Power BI so often, I still don't manage to keep up with all the news, but some really, really good features coming out of that. Thank you for sharing. So next let's head up to some more news. My co-host, Kaylin, you ready to go?
Awesome. I'm ready to go. Just bear with me whilst I share my screen. Just working on one screen, so please bear with me. All right, perfect. Thanks so much, JP, for that awesome Power BI news. I'm bringing a little bit of a different flavor on the Fabric side of things. But for those of you who don't know me, and Jess mentioned earlier, I'm Kaylin Perry. I'm a data solutions engineer here at Intellect, and I assist both Jess and Sven with the BI use group. So that's a little bit about me. If you do want to contact me, I'm happy to pop my details in the chat. Awesome. So the April news, there's actually been quite a lot since there was a Fabric conference in March, FabCon, and there was also a SQL conference as well. So they kind of partnered over March. So there's a lot of updates. I'm only going to go through a few very high level ones that I thought were most prevalent for today. But if you do navigate to the link at the end of this, all of the updates are provided there, so you can go and read them in your own time, and also go and see some tutorials on how to use some of these new features as well. So that's just a bit of a caveat. But basically, the general availability updates for this month are all about maturity and confidence. So the focus is really on improving or improvements across governance, security, and operational management. And 3 key areas kind of stood out for me, and this is deeper admin capabilities in one lake. That's the one. Expansions of risk management integrations and stronger platform controls, especially for organizations that are running Fabric at scale. So there's massive focus on that the last 2 months. And we're going to dive into those general availability ones now, but I'm just going to give you a high level update on the preview features of the last 2 months that I think are really cool. So the preview features are looking deeper Git and CI/CD integration. So they're really putting quite a big focus on how to use branching strategies, have Git and code management and reviews. A lot more focus is going into that. There's also a big push for expansion for Fabric CLI capabilities. So that's really cool as well. I think it's going to help a lot of us when we're coding within the Fabric landscape and CLI. and new automation options. So you can see it's very heavy into trying to guide the whole BI development to follow a bit more of a software delivery lifecycle kind of approach, which is really, really cool for version control and management. So the 3 key areas I wanted to chat about regarding some of these preview features is branched workspaces with Git integration. So this is designed to simplify how teams work with feature workspaces during branch outflow. Then there's Purview DSPM for AI, for Fabric Copilots and data agents. So this basically helps teams spot sensitive data risks in AI prompts and responses, which I think is becoming more and more prevalent now with, being sensitive to how data is being used and how prompts are being generated, and identify any risky AI behavior. As well as apply consistent governance. So it's basically how they're trying to implement ethics with AI, which I think is a really great thing that they're doing and focusing on. And then bulk import and export items definition APIs. So these APIs enable you to programmatically export, import, and synchronize Fabric item definitions across workspaces and at scale. And this is all done through the REST API. The Fabric REST API, which is really awesome. But I'm not going to dive too much more into that. They are preview features, but they should be planned for release in the next few months. So that's really good, and keep your eyes out for them. Cool. Then onto the general availability. April and towards the latter part of March. As I mentioned, these were the 3 key areas that they're really focusing on. And the 3 that I'm going to dive into a bit of detail today is the One Lake catalog govern for admins, the workspace tags improvement, and the lakehouse signals in IRM. So I'm going to focus a little bit on that in detail. All right, so One Lake catalog govern for admins. This is effective data governance to try and help make sure that integrity, security, and the usability of our data within One Lake is to the best standard. So basically, One Lake Catalog is available for Fabric admins, and it provides tools and insights to help us better manage and govern our data estates within Fabric in one place. So this view, it's a little bit small, the screenshots, but as I said, if you do follow the link, you'll be able to look at this in a bit more depth. But basically, you have 2 views. You have the overall govern view, just to see everything with some graphs and patterns to see these kinds of assets and how they're being managed. And then you can go into more of a report view as well. So it's quite a nice way of monitoring this for your integrity and security of your data. So that's the One Lake catalog govern for admins that's generally available. The next one is workspace tags. So Fabric tags really help add meaningful metadata to your data in Fabric so that people can search that content faster and organize it a little bit more consistently. Basically, what they do is serve as an ability to add shared context like team, project, or cost center information at the workspace level. And it helps teams discover and manage these workspaces more efficiently, but also allowing for scalable governance through APIs. So it's quite a lovely feature. And these workspace tags are actually built on the existing Fabric tags model. So basically what happens is tags are defined applied on items and workspaces, and workspace admins can apply and remove these tags within their workspace settings, making it really easy to add shared context at the workspace level. And this will really help with searching and discovering as well. At the moment, note that workspaces can only have 10 tags applied. So there is a bit of a limitation there, but hopefully that can get expanded in the near future. They're also surfaced in key discovery experiences, so they're usable in your day-to-day navigation. So it really does try help streamline how you utilize this and utilize your workspaces. Awesome. Then the last one is the lakehouse signals in IRM. So basically, these lakehouse signals are basically indicators that are in insider risk management that help enable security teams to better detect and investigate really risky activity in One Lake with greater precision and context. So it basically incorporates these Fabric Lakehouse signals directly into your insider risk policies. So you can correlate your data and access and movement of that access with DLP, labeling, and audit signals in one investigative experience. So it's very consolidated, makes it far easier to predict kind of suspicious activity. So it's really, really great for stronger protection of high value analytics data, but also maintaining privacy controls. So this is a really great new change, really good things coming. Yeah, as I mentioned, those were the very quick high-level things I thought were most awesome that were released in the last 2 months. But there is a really awesome blog that was released and it's kept up to date. So there are new articles that are dropped there virtually every single day on some of these new features and updates coming in. So as preview features are made available, they so it's a really great kind of browser thing to tag in your history, so you can really easily find it and go and navigate to that bookmark and check what's going on any given day. But that's me for the Fabric news. Very short and sweet, but there's lots more to come, so please keep your eye out.
Thank you so much, Kaylin. It's always exciting to see how they're growing and developing the Fabric landscape. So thank you for sharing that. Then, for the main event of the evening, my other co-host, Sven, please, are you good to go?
I think so. I'm going to share my screen shortly and we can rock and roll. I am going to share that screen, yes. All right, do you see my PowerPoint? Do you see the yellow dot? Because sometimes in PowerPoint presentation mode, you can't see the yellow dot. Okay.
Yes,
all right, excellent. All right, excellent. I have quite a tough job ahead of me. I have to try and present all of this in around about 35 minutes. So it's going to be a challenge. But actually, as we mentioned, well, as Jess said so well in the beginning of the session, we've actually get feedback from the surveys that we ask you to fill in. And we do take it seriously and we look at it each month. And in actual fact, this was a request from someone who recently filled in the survey. Before I forget, I have a side road to quickly cover. Last month we had 3 vouchers to get free exam certification. So basically then for the DP 600 or the DP 700, we gave away 3 vouchers for that. I've actually got 2 more. So the request I have is that you obviously need to let me know, and the method you do that is through filling in that survey. So I'm sure Jess will show that again at the end, that little QR code. So please fill in the survey. If you want to be eligible for the prize, please put in there, like there's a little free text thing at the bottom of the survey. Just put in there, yes, please, I'd like to be eligible for the voucher. That is the way that I can determine whether you should be in the lucky draw or whether you are just filling in the survey, which again, we would kindly request that you do. Just bear in mind there are some conditions with that voucher. You have to sign up for the exam within the next week or so and do the exam during the month. It was different from last month. This window is wider. I think you've got the month of May to do the exam. So just put your name and email address and that you want to be eligible for the draw. I will do the draw at noon tomorrow. Okay, I've got 2 vouchers to give away. All right, so the survey is important, and this presentation was requested through that survey. Secondly, this is part 1 of our topic, so we're going to bring out some more on this topic, the back to basics topic. And as I mentioned, I've got quite a lot that I've actually got to cover, so it is going to be quite a challenge. That screen is not updating, so that's not ideal. There we go. Right. Okay, so what I'm planning to do now in the next sort of 30 minutes or so is just covering whether or not some of you have been using Power BI since it's been out, which is now more than 10 years, but others are quite new, okay? And you might be new to Power BI, you might be new to Fabric. You can actually feel quite overwhelmed. There are lots and lots of buzzwords. There's a non-stop flow of new features and releases. As you saw from both JP and Kaylin, literally every single month there's new content that comes out. So it's hard to keep on top of all of these things. So that's why the user group, our user group event, is helpful, hopefully helpful for people to stay up to date with the news. And then we obviously do presentations on different topics. So for instance, today we're doing an overview of Fabric and high-level intro to Power BI. But just bear in mind that just the word Power BI, the simple word Power BI, I mean, we could take days and days and days to try and cover that syllabus. In actual fact, we offer training courses. We've got a beginner, an intermediate, and an advanced. The one is 16 hours long, the other is 20 hours, and the other one is 16 hours. And that's still not enough just to cover Power BI. Okay, so that's why we're saying it can be very overwhelming. But I'm going to talk to you and give you some suggestions through this as we go along. Okay, so we're going to cover a couple of elements here: Fabric and Power BI overview. Then we are going to spend the rest of the time talking about Power BI, and therefore specifically Power Query, semantic modeling, report design, and the Power BI service. And we want to know how all of these fit together. Okay. But of course, I can't go through everything in detail. As I mentioned, you could talk about this for days and days. Okay. And again, as Jess, sorry, I was about to get ahead of myself. The next session that we plan to have in the near future is more about the Fabric workloads and how they fit together. So that's where the series is going to. I put the resources right up front. Just so that you know, I really enjoy this article, Radicad, 9th of January 2025. Okay, but Radicad's obviously been doing blogs, Reserad, for many years. In this case, he comes from a strong Power BI background and has written this article. Here we go. As a Power BI developer, what should you think about Fabric, and whether do you need it, and how does it fit in? So it's Fabric from a Power BI developer viewpoint, and so I really liked that. And then there's a Microsoft Learn portal, which has an enormous amount of resource, and so obviously you can find more about Fabric there. But then I would like you to consider going to this GitHub repo. That is our GitHub repo. Jess did mention it. I'm just going to do an Alt tab quickly. I'm going to go there now because, if you can see my screen now, I've just jumped to GitHub. We've been doing this now for about 18 months. Firstly, there is a link to our YouTube channel. So all of our videos are there on that channel, which you can obviously search in YouTube, or you can just get the link here. Here is our Meetup user group. There's the Meetup user group. This one is the Microsoft Fabric Power BI community URL. And then if I just scroll down to the bottom, you can see these are all of our events. When I upload them, I have put these little sort of table of content references. So Power BI news, there's the little pipe, Fabric news pipe, and then top features of Power BI for 2024. So that's what was covered in this event. Or in this event, we covered the DAX query view. There's simplicity and complexity of DAX. So the reason why I'm bringing this up now is, first of all, I really would like you guys to use it. Just follow it so that you know when new updates occur. Just roughly speaking, it would be, if we have a meeting on a Thursday, as we normally do, it will be early in the following week when the content will be uploaded here. But follow it, it will be much easier. And then you can use these, the table of contents, little pipe sections to know which ones to go in and have a look at. Because again, in the survey, people said, could you do a topic or a presentation on X or Y or Z? And in some cases, that person is obviously new to our group and wouldn't have known that perhaps a month ago or 6 months ago or a year ago, we've done something similar. So there were requests on some AI content. We did a lot on AI. We did some in October last year. Then we had a brand new series where we had 4 vendors talk about it. So in November and January, we had Click and Microsoft. Then we had Tableau and SAP talk about AI. So there's a lot there. Please have a look. Okay. All right, now I must get back to the presentation, which is probably best. There we go. Right. Okay. So cool. I do have a section at the end for questions, but if you have questions along the way, I certainly don't mind. But now we're going to get actually into the heart of the presentation. This is the fabric overview, and I'm sure that you've actually seen a diagram of this kind before. However, the diagram keeps changing. If you look carefully, you'll notice that the last few months, IQ has been there. These are, by the way, all the different workloads, okay? And we'll talk a little bit about that now, but more about that in series number 2. But IQ is new. It's actually meant to help with AI and agents. Obviously, Power BI is the one that we know and love. Real-time analytics, real-time intelligence, databases, it's about 18 months old. Analytics, that has a whole lot of things underneath it, which you'll see on the next screen. But that's effectively Azure Synapse Analytics. And then there's Data Factory. And then underpinning all of these different workloads, you've obviously got a governance layer. You've got the OneLake storage layer, and then Copilot. Okay. I'm trying not to go into this now because there's time for that later, either in tonight's session or next time. But again, this can be confusing because first of all, the diagram keeps changing. There's a lot of buzzwords, you know, Parquet, Delta tables, Delta Lake, Data Lake, lake houses, you know, all of that can actually get quite overwhelming. But the best way that I have come to learn about Fabric is that you could consider it to be the operating system. So Fabric is an operating system, and it allows different workloads to be bundled inside. It's an overall wrapper of different functionality, and different languages can be used inside of Fabric. So as you'll see on the very next slide, here we go. This I took from a PowerPoint presentation from Microsoft, helping to prepare for DP600 exams, those who are interested in it. So that's why it doesn't have my background on it. It is Microsoft's presentation. And it's a little blurb on Fabric to say, Fabric is a unified management and government, is unified Fabrics. Sorry, I'm trying to read their slide, but I'm not reading it very well. Fabric's unified management and governance makes it easier for data professionals to work together. So I thought that this would be an important slide because I think many of you are just starting out in your careers. And so you might not know, well, you might know that you are very interested in data, but you might not know where you should specialize, okay? So I think this is very helpful. There are obviously different skill sets, different personalities and hardwiring of each individual, and that makes you more suited to one of these areas, okay? So data engineers, all right? Those are the guys building and managing pipelines and moving data around and things like that, storing the data. And they use different tools, all of which are included in Fabric, okay? These blue ones were all on the previous slide, just contained in the workload called analytics. But it's data warehousing, data engineering. It's interesting that they've turned this one blue, because normally it's maroon. But anyway, real-time intelligence, and then a couple of others. You can see they do span across different personas, which makes sense. So there's data engineers, then there's analytics engineers. Okay, so that's actually what I do most of the time, and you can use Power BI for that, and obviously then other things included in that: data factory, data engineering workloads, and data warehousing workloads. And these guys are the people who build models, semantic models. Okay, they're the ones building the formulas. They're not necessarily the ones moving the data around, but they're creating the models. There's coding in there, obviously using DAX to do that, and they help the analysts to be able to analyze and create reports. Okay, so that's analytics engineers. Data scientists, they use Fabric as well. Obviously different workloads, and in this case Azure ML and the data science workload, which is part of Synapse Analytics. Then we've got data analysts. Obviously, that's Power BI is the main tool for that. Although, as you'll see on the next slide, there are other ways of dealing with that as well. And then obviously there's decision makers. Okay, so in the business, you've got the audience for the reports, and they'll consume the reports in multiple ways, but typically through Microsoft 365 or Power BI. Okay, so I'm trying to set the scene in terms of big picture, back to basics. Okay, cool. These are the components of Fabric. All these little colorful icons, and they have largely been grouped together. Okay, so these orangey colors, okay, are, one might think Power BI related, although that's Power BI report, that's a paginated report, that's a Power BI dashboard. Okay, that's Data Explore, which is another way to look at the data, quite a basic way of doing it, but there's all sorts of different ways of doing it. Here's scorecards, which is part of Power BI. It's to do with metrics and KPIs and things like that. And then there's obviously that's Power BI apps as well. I'm actually not sure what that is. The maroon is real-time intelligence. Okay, so that's there are ways to view reports or dashboards using a different bit of functionality, not necessarily Power BI. And then they've got activators and reflexes that detect anomalies in the real-time streaming data that's coming in. Okay, so then obviously we move to the purpley kind of colors. These 5 dots here, all to do with semantic models. Okay, and then there's data marts and data flows and things like that. The blue is more to do with storage. Okay, SQL storage, Lakehouse, things like that. And then the green is to do with processing and moving things around. There's pipelines. There's also data flows there, the Gen 2. All right, so we're not going to go into all the great details of it, but at this point, what I do want to mention is that if you've been using Power BI for a long time and you think, geez, I need to get into Fabric and I don't know if I really need, I feel I need to, but I'm not sure, where would I start? And I'm feeling very overwhelmed. Okay, so firstly, you've got to decide what area of expertise you want to focus on. So whether, you might want to stay as a Power BI developer, and I don't want to use the word only to minimize that. There is an enormous scope there just on its own. But I do think you should try and expand. I think in data, there's such an enormous amount that you could learn over the years. It is useful to specialize in something, but you still need to be a generalist across multiple things. Now, obviously, that's not going to happen overnight, and you need to build up some experience. But if people ask me lots of deep questions about Fabric, I need to be comfortable to say, I actually don't know. I consider myself a Power BI. Well, I'm passionate about Power BI, so that's the tool that I spend the most of time using. And so I'm comfortable there, okay? But basically then, if you're now working in a company, now you might be in a part of a big data team, in which case there'll be people who will know Fabric and you can lean on them. But there are plenty of you who work in smaller companies and you might be the whole team. You might be the team, the person who does the reporting, the person who moves the data around, who prepares the data, you look after all the data sources. And someone has said, oh, I've heard about Fabric. Can you, can we get started? Okay. So obviously you'll need to come to our next user group where we start to talk about Fabric capabilities and workloads and things like that. But just as a starting point, obviously go to the Learn portal to learn more about it. But don't feel you must go into Fabric. Okay. And this is a key point I'd like to mention. There are many companies that have multiple data sources. You might have an ERP system and budgets and forecasts in Excel, and you've got data from a web source. And in many, many cases, Power BI is going to do the job for you perfectly. It's going to centralize all the data, that buzzword, single source of the truth. You want everything in one centralized model. Power BI can do all of that for you, okay? But as the company gets bigger and as there are more developers and as there are more needs and there's suddenly you've got a data scientist in the team, they're going to need more things. And that's obviously where Fabric comes into it. Okay. or perhaps you need real-time intelligence, some of this maroon stuff, well, then you're going to need fabric to do that. Okay, so you don't have to go into fabric, but it is driven by what the needs of the business are. Okay, and so that's something you must think about. Then obviously just a quick word on pricing. So fabric starts out with the smallest version, F2. Okay, it's 2 capacity units, and that costs roughly 3,000 or 4,000 rand a month, based on the exchange rate. Okay, but that's on an annual reservation. That's a key word, annual reservation. You can pay that monthly, but you commit to it for a year. Okay, so the trial is very important. It lasts 60 days, and you can, if you're lucky, just get that to renew for a while. Okay, but typically once you're ready to go, you're going to need to either go with a reservation, as I mentioned, or you can go pay as you go. Now, pay as you go is more expensive. It's somewhere between 30 and 40% more expensive. So the 3,000 or 4,000 rand a month for F2 is round about 5,000 or 6,000 rand a month for pay as you go. But pay as you go, you can pause, you can turn on, you can turn off, and you can say, in fact, we've tried enough, we're going to stop, or we thought F2 on a pay as you go was enough, but we need more, so we can go up to an F4. Whereas a reservation, certainly you can't downgrade. You can upgrade, but you can't downgrade. So I would recommend that you start out as pay as you go, try it out, and then when you are comfortable with what's coming in, your data sources, what's going out, how many users, how many reports, is it real time, is it Power BI stuff, the capacity units that you need, then go and commit to an annual reservation. You'd have to do that in Azure, and you create an actual reservation to do it, and then you link it up. Okay, now how do you know if F2 is enough? Because there's all sorts of things called bursting and smoothing and throttling. You'll need to use the fabric metrics, capacity metrics. It will help show you which workspaces that have been allocated to your fabric environment, which ones are consuming the most capacity units, and then specifically which items. So perhaps there's a regular refresh that is consuming a lot of data, or maybe there's a particular workload, a SQL, this one, for instance, this Azure SQL, or maybe there's a whole lot of activities in your lakehouse. Maybe real-time intelligence is consuming a lot. You can see it there in your fabric capacity metrics. Okay, and that's going to help you decide whether or not the F2 is strong enough. Okay, and then you might have to go F4. Every time you double your number, so F2 becomes F4, the price doubles and the capacity units double. So your processing power and your capacity will double. F2, F4, F8, and so on. All right, cool. So those are the components. Right, so now we get to the part that I enjoy the most, Power BI. And as I mentioned in the intro, we're gonna just talk a minute or two on each one of these. So you can see it is back to basics, high level. Okay, certainly can't cover it in any great detail. But again, I want to emphasize, if it is that you've been doing Power BI for a long time, start to look into Fabric. Don't feel compelled that you must go into Fabric. You must bring your company into Fabric. It depends on what they need. Okay. And the specialization part, you can even specialize literally as a data engineer in this area, or in the steps leading up to Power Query. I'll get to that. Or you can specialize in your semantic modeling or report design, that kind of story. It depends on your personality and your skills and your interests. Okay, another point to make, just to say again, literally every month, as we have seen in the news, they bring out new Power BI features. 11 out of 12 months, for now more than 10 years, they've brought out new features. Okay, and just when you think they surely have nothing more to add, they bring more and more stuff out. There's plenty, as JP was showing you. Okay, and then similarly, Kalen on the Fabric side. So there's plenty. All right, fine. So we've oh yeah, this is I always do this in my training. I basically say, what is the purpose of data analytics or Power BI, or sorry, BI, meaning business intelligence? It is so that we can visualize data. Now, this is the opposite. This is not visualizing data. Okay? Can you spot the trend? Can you spot the outliers? If you're just looking at rows and columns of numbers, it is very hard to spot the trends. However, on a graph, you can very, very easily see those exact same numbers visualized, and you can see outliers like that, or trends like that, or particular layout. Okay, and the thing I would remind you is you need to default to the assumption that your audience is not data literate. Okay, it doesn't mean they're stupid. It means they are not comfortable with rows and columns of data, of numbers, of just stats and analysis. You need to make it simple by doing graphs, okay, to show them the trends. Okay, the financial people are comfortable with rows and columns of data, but pretty much the rest of your audience is not. Okay, right, Power Query. Okay, so I always said, in the beginning when Power BI was launched, the first few years, many people were asking the question, which is better? Is Power BI better? Was Tableau better? Or was Click better? Or, how do we know which is which? And if you grew up using Tableau, you'd say Tableau is better. And if you grew up using Click, you'd say Click is better. Of course, I would say Power BI is better. But I do think Power BI is better for a very, very good reason. Power BI is literally 3 tools in one. Okay, it is the data preparation tool, which is called Power Query. Okay, that is one part of Power BI. Okay, the next part is the modeling section, and the next part is the visualization section, and that is 3 tools in one. Okay, whereas Tableau doesn't have such a good ETL layer. Okay, their data modeling, the modeling section is okay, so is Clicks, but it isn't as strong, in my opinion, compared to Power BI because of its legacy with analysis services from more than 20 years. Okay, and then on top of that, you've got integration with the Power Platform. So Power BI is part of the Power Platform, so it integrates with Power Apps and Power Automate and so on. Yes, there's MuleSoft out there that other vendors have, and different ways of doing things, but still the Power Platform is another thing. And then of course the enormous reach of Microsoft 365. So PowerPoint integration, Excel integration. Obviously Microsoft knows how all of that works and does it very well with Power BI in that ecosystem. So that is another reason why I think Power BI is leading and will continue to lead these other products. Okay, but now back to Power Query. That is the first part of Power BI, 3 tools in one. It's the first tool. Now, some of you might literally use Power Query for the simplest thing, literally connect to a SQL view that one of your colleagues has created for you, in which case you will have a source and a navigation step, and that is it, probably nothing more than that. Okay, whereas others like me, I would create effectively SQL views in Power Query. I'll clean, I'll transform, I'll bring other data sources in, I'll combine them, I'll make sure that they're compatible with mapping and different things like that, and I use Power Query to do that. Yes, there are other tools, okay, and of course your data engineers could do this for you, SQL views or stored procedures or whatever, but sometimes you don't have access to that. Other times you need to do it for an Excel spreadsheet, data, that kind of story. That is when you use Power Query. It is to connect to data. Power Query is part of Fabric, okay? You'll see it in those user experiences, okay, in what's called data flows, okay? There is a Gen 1 and a Gen 2. Don't get too stressed out about that. And Azure Data Factory, they all have very, very similar interfaces. And that's effectively Power Query behind or under the hood, as they call it. But Power BI obviously contains Power Query as well, and you might not have realized, but Excel has the same since 2016. Okay, Power Query. It helps you transform and clean and prepare your data. Okay. Some of you may need it, some of you may not, because you've got other colleagues who will do it for you, and they might take care of all the aggregations, the group by or the joins, and so on. Okay, and others, like myself, got to do it myself, and I use Power Query a lot. Now, when you start to use Power Query, you'll notice there's a user interface, lots of different buttons, and that makes the user experience easier. Okay, but you need to be aware, excuse me, that there are a whole lot of functions that you can use that are not necessarily associated to buttons. So you'll have to use syntax, you'll have to type in the functions, but it means that besides the enormous amount that you can see Power Query can do in terms of buttons, there's far more if you just use the added functions that are available. Okay, available in desktop, Fabric, and there's data flows, Excel. Fine. I have 6 minutes left. We'll pull it off, and we'll keep the questions for the end. Okay, semantic modeling. This is my personal favorite. It's just how my mind works. I enjoy this kind of thing. It is, to be honest, when I give the training, it is complicated. Obviously, this is the formulas, this is the relationships between the tables, the formulas meaning measures. This is the whole concept of the dimensions and facts. And then there is a critical concept called context. Sometimes context is your friend, other times you will curse it. But that's the joy of DAX, and it is an enormously powerful set of functions and a formula language that you use. And sometimes all you need is sum. Add up the sales amount, add up the quantity column, divide the sales by the quantity to get your price, your selling price, and that might be all you need. Okay. In other cases, your clients or your colleagues are asking you to do complicated calculations. Okay. And DAX has an enormous variety of functions that you can use. Okay, but of course you have to learn more about relationships, dims and facts, measures, and context. Okay, and it is a continuous journey. Okay, all right, excellent. So then we move to report design. Okay, this is for the more creative type people. The use of design and creativity, colors, contrasting colors. You're trying to tell a story. The layout of the visuals on the page is important. It makes sense. Well, it's important. It needs to make sense to your end users. Okay, you want them to be able to take action. They've looked at your dashboard. Okay, and can they, after viewing the report and dashboard, can they literally say, I know what I need to do next? Okay, whether it's someone on the production floor, whether it's a sales rep, whether it's a key account manager, whether it's the manager of a department, or someone servicing a customer, or procurement manager, or whatever, they need to know what to do next after looking at the report page that you built. Okay, I've just written there, most of the time less is more. Okay, there are some audiences that need a very comprehensive dashboard or a report page. But most of the time, less is more. But you do need to try and think, what does the audience need to answer? What questions do they need to answer? And you need to help them get to that answer. Of course, you can't give them everything. So sometimes you need to enable them with some dynamic functionality. Field parameters help you do that. Personalized visuals. You might create a bar chart and publish it, and they can edit and change what's on the bar chart, maybe change the legend, maybe change the x-axis, maybe change the bar chart into a table. That kind of functionality allows the end user to do that kind of thing. And that's in the realm of self-service, which of course they could use the model that you've created and create their own reports and their own dashboards. Okay. So that's report design. Okay, and then finally, we've got the Power BI service. This is the most popular method to view and share reports. There are other ways. You can embed them. You can obviously view them in this on a mobile app. You can put them in web interface, web applications, all sorts of things. You can put it in SharePoint. You can put it into Teams. But most of the times it's done through Power BI service. That is a fancy name for powerbi.com. Okay. This is also where you schedule your refreshes. You want your data to stay current. I'll kind of come to this one in a second. And then this is also where you do a lot of the administration. You know, who do you share it with? Who has access? Who can create things? Who can delete things? Who can share things? That kind of story. Okay, so that's a lot of that happens in the Power BI service. And then just the final point here. And by the way, we are actually done because the last slide is next, and that is questions. Okay, but just as a comment, I think a lot of people will use the phrase, the dashboard, okay, the sales dashboard, or can you create a finance dashboard? Okay, Power BI actually uses very specific definitions. So typically when you're in Power BI, you are creating a when you're in Power BI desktop, you are creating a report. It's a file that has one or more pages, and I view each one of those as a report page. Okay, a dashboard in Power BI terminology is different, and I'll just quickly go to this one here. This is what Power BI calls is a dashboard. It is snippets. It's different elements of one or more other pages that you extract and you put on a dashboard, but you cannot interact with them. You cannot click on one region and on the one visual and it interacts with another visual. It is purely to consume the answer. You can't interact with it. That's the dashboard. Okay. This is the report. The report could have a page that is designed to be what people think of as a dashboard, which is the preference that I like. So I actually don't use dashboards. I create report pages that are in themselves dashboards. Okay, and that's where you realize that people use different phrases in different businesses. They'll typically call it a dashboard. Can you please create a dashboard for me? All right, that is it. It's actually not bad timing. So that's my presentation. Certainly, anyone's welcome to stay behind and ask questions. Yeah, also maybe I can just pause. I can actually stop sharing, and then Jess, do you mind just putting that that GitHub slide up? Not the GitHub as well as the survey. There we go. That's it. So guys, if you can take a snap of that, use the link, and then if there are questions, you're welcome to ask. I'm happy to stay and answer. Yeah, you heard there was plenty to cover in just a few minutes. So high level. Maybe there aren't any questions. Okay, cool. Thank you for the feedback. But yeah, obviously stay tuned for more presentations over the next few months. Okay, well, I'll hand it back to you, Jess. Thank you.
Awesome. Thank you so much, Sven. That was really, really cool. Even working with Power BI for so long, I've forgotten some of the very basic things. So it was really nice to get that refresher. With that, as Sven has mentioned, it is part of a series. So if you were listening to this and you've had some questions pop up, some other topics that you might want to learn a bit more about, again, please use our feedback survey. We would love to hear about it. As Sven also mentioned just earlier, if you are interested in being eligible for that voucher, the exam voucher, please fill in that survey and add in at the bottom in the comments that you would like to be eligible for it. He'll do that draw tomorrow. But yes, thank you so much, guys. Just a reminder, our next session will be 28 May as hybrid, so we'll be online and also in person at the Intellect Joburg offices. You'll find us on Meetup again. Thank you so much, Kaylin and Sven, as well, for all the work you guys did in the background as my co-hosts. And JP, also thank you for the Power BI news. It was a great event. Thank you so much, guys. I hope everyone has a lovely evening. See you next time.
Thank you. Well done, Jess.
Bye-bye.
Your first
Thanks,
event and
everybody.
you nailed it. Well done. Yeah.
Well done, Jess.
everyone.
Thanks, everyone.
Thank you.
Bye.
Thanks, everyone.